then you,
Yeah.
I'm gonna open the December 20th, 2023 Select Board meeting at 6:02 PM. Do we have adjustments to the agenda? The only thing Belinda presented to me was that we need to approve a liquor license for the new owners to be for the Wolcott store, which will be, I think, in January. Okay, nothing else. All right. We need to approve the minutes of December 6th, 2023. If I take a motion to approve,
I'll make the motion.
second,
I'll second.
do any discussion on them?
I need to make a correction as to attendance at the last meeting. Brad Wilson should be deleted and substituted as Brett Egan. He was here with Jim Fulton representing the fire department. That was just my error.
Everything else seem all right with everyone? Okay, all those in favor of approving the minutes of December 6th, 2023 with that one amendment, say aye. Opposed? So carried.
Jackson's physics is locked in there, so make sure he gets out.
Thank you. You, Leslie? Hi, Leslie. We're ready for you. You could all give Deb your name so she keeps attendance of who attends the meetings, and then you're welcome to present during the comments for the community.
Thank you. Yeah. My daughter and granddaughter came along with me. So, thank you for your time.
The microphone's right over here.
She's okay.
Okay, okay,
Well,
fine.
I just requested a few minutes to speak with everyone regarding the process I went through to build my house in Wolcott. It was 6.5 year process and very, very expensive. I wanted to retire 6.5 years ago and build my house. The builder started my house, built my house 4 feet from the boundary line. I wasn't in the state where until the house was built. When I came to visit, which that it was 4 feet from the boundary line, made a call to a lawyer. Called the realtor who came and measured the stakes and said it's 4 feet from the boundary line. My lawyer said you have to stop all building. And then I called Tom Martin. Tom said he'd be out and get back in touch with me. He came out and looked at the house, he never got back to me, wrote a letter to the builder's attorney that he didn't see a problem with it. So over the next 6 years, we struggled with this. It was one of the hardest things I've had to go through. Nobody was questioning that my house was 4 feet from the boundary line. I include the maps with the information I sent you. The insurance company wouldn't pay because it wasn't a violation. They only paid all their for the builder. The question wasn't, is it 4 feet from the boundary line? The question was, it's not a violation. So let it go. But then I had the state telling me that I couldn't get title insurance for this house. Because of where it's at, and the next zoning administrator would come in and it's 4 feet from the boundary line. I couldn't get homeowners insurance. And it's unmarketable because I have to disclose this. I was sort of stuck. My attorney said you can't bring it to this group because first of all, the courts would look very unfavorably at looking for a violation against yourself. And if you had decided, okay, it's a violation and you've got to fix it in 2 months, then I would have been stuck. So it took 6 years to go through the process and move the boundary line. Negotiate that and get it moved. So my goal is to put closure to this for me. Also, I don't want it to happen to somebody else. I'd like to maybe work with you or request that you work on a plan to improve communication. Maybe if there'd been more talking, I couldn't approach you, but if there was some channel for communication and also checks and balances. Where were the checks and balances on this? So that's my goal. And I thank you for listening. Does anyone have any questions or discussion?
What do you mean by checks and balances? Could you give me an example, just so we understand what you think it is?
One person can look at a site and say, I don't see a problem with it, never looked at the map clearly, if this was on a map. Knew the builder. That's an assumption of mine. And can just say, I don't have a problem, it's not a violation. You know what, there are rules I follow, and where are the checks and balances? Is anyone checking those decisions? Are there any? Should there be any? How can we improve this? So it doesn't happen again to somebody else?
That's the question. I didn't, can you clarify for me, you said it's not a violation. Boundary, what was the issue?
It was
No.
from my boundary line, so by the,
I'm just wondering why.
it was 4 feet
It's not.
from my boundary line clearly on the map. So by the regulations, town regulations, it has to be 25 feet. And I would have had to disclose this, selling, I couldn't get insurance.
So was it violent, it was only process.
But it, you know, the decision was, no, I don't care, it's fine. And that was in the letter you read.
Yeah, we have the letter and everyone got a copy
I
of the
don't see
letter.
any problem, there was no research.
So I think one of the problems is that the public expects the town to solve a lot of their problems, and by not having, by your signing the permit that you were building it, you know, you
The
were
building-
building the house 150 feet from the property line and the public, and 500 feet from the public highway, it says.
Yeah, and the builder filled that out, sent it to me, I signed it, he submitted it. And it clearly says the house will be 150 feet from
Right.
the boundary line, there's another violation, it was 4. I mean, I could see if it was 100, you know, if it's close, but it was 4.
And we also, we don't have anyone, you know, employed in our town that, is qualified to be a surveyor to know where the boundary lines are. So I think that's kind of how our towns are set up. That, you know, when you sign the permit, you're certifying that it's gonna be there.
And it wasn't,
Yeah,
and it was surveyed, the land was surveyed.
it was, but,
It was surveyed by multiple people, there was a map on file,
so it seemed like the problem was,
there were stakes.
mhm,
But if I'm understanding correctly, even if a town official were to go out and measure from those survey stakes, the number we come up with wouldn't be valid for anything is part of what the issue is. We wouldn't be able to certify a document that says you are 4 feet. If that were to go to court, it would be meaningless. You know, in any kind of litigation.
So effectively, unless you have a state license for surveying, it's not, you can't officially 100% say where it is.
Right. So talking about reform, it seems like maybe you should be in contact. I don't know if it would be planning or development review, whoever deals with what our zoning regulations are. Maybe we should require, you know, surveyors to certify the permits are built. You know, I'm not sure if that's a thing that, and I don't believe that we're the body to do that.
no, that would go through the, planning commission. But that is a question we could put forth, to, Seth at Lamoille County Planning Commission, who helps us with our zoning when we have to change our zoning bylaws. right now we have to follow them. The select board really has no control over zoning decisions. I was just trying to think of some way you could have appealed a decision, but I don't think you can appeal your own decision.
Well, especially in the position you were in,
Right.
you know, with your lawyers telling you not to.
Can I ask a question?
Is it relevant to our discussion?
I'm wondering why, if there's no enforcement in the town of the zoning laws, how is the authority to?
There is enforcement in certain times. There is enforcement.
So then it's.
There are violations on file.
Who's responsible for enforcing the 25-foot setback? In the town?
Well, if it's outright and you know, the zoning administrator is,
But that.
the zoning administrator.
They have the authority to measure it and say whether it's in violation.
I think if the decision were appealed and it went to environmental court, then there would have to be a survey done.
So it seems like there isn't a local ability to verify whether or not you are within the guidelines of zoning.
I suppose it would depend on your definition of local. Do we as a town?
The town officials.
No, we don't have anyone employed that could do that.
So when you go into the state level,
I'm not sure what the next step is.
so it doesn't seem like it's an enforceable zoning law if there's no authority. I mean, in the legal sense, if there's no enforcement, then there's no law.
Well, the average person, you know, they know the rules, 25 feet from the boundaries. You have a plan, you're certifying that's where you're gonna build it. And that's what it's based on. I mean, it's more trusting
We also.
that you're certifying.
Yeah, there's also a system applying for a variance too on all of these zoning,
There is. And then it would go to the DRB
which is
Development Review Board.
review board.
the state.
So there's a whole board. I mean, general permitting is allowed by the zoning administrator. Next step goes to DRB and it's a group of people who decide if they're following the zoning bylaws or subdivision regulations.
Do they have the authority to enforce setbacks?
Well, it would never go to them.
So again, it doesn't seem like there's any clear.
Okay, that's your opinion. We're gonna move on.
You haven't given me.
Mhm.
So when you initially put in this plan, was it known it was gonna be 4 foot from the boundary line?
No, we had picked out a general location that was set back a little ways. I was planning a U-shaped driveway in front of my house. But the builder didn't do that.
Sounds like to me that the builder didn't read any of the zoning, and that's where the problem started.
There was a turnaround there. And that's my boundary was.
No, it still comes down to, you should have known that you had to be 25 foot from the boundary.
And the builder should have known that, and the zoning administrator should have known that.
So it still comes down to the builder and the zoning administrator.
Yeah.
That's where it all,
No checks and balances and.
well, that was it should have, the zoning administrator should have caught it.
But then you're also saying that the town official said that it was in violation.
The zoning administrator should have looked at violation. The builder's legal team said it's not a violation, so our insurance company isn't paying. So
So we have a lot of people here. We're gonna take your suggestions under consideration and talk further about that to people. Actually, Michael's on the DRB and the planning commission, so maybe I'm gonna ask him to broach that subject and we'll do some research on it for you for the future, all right?
Yes, and I'd be happy to get involved in any way you want me involved. Like I said, my goal is to fix it. Whatever that means. To prevent it from happening for people.
And thank you.
Thank you.
We have you, Timothy. I don't know your friend's name.
Derek.
Eric, Timothy and Derek are here. Pardon?
Eric. Eric.
Oh, Eric, sorry, I thought, I didn't hear it correctly.
We are here with the civil border position in 2014, July 4th. There's also another order that was written on June 10th. And you all have copies of that. And we're here as the civil authority to make sure this is recognized by the town officials. And what we
Well, why don't you tell us what it means?
Give you a
A summary of it.
Yeah, so basically, it's talking about two different, ways of looking at what we call the United States of America. In this document, it calls one major and one minor. And so it seems as though the original intent of in this nation has moved into a dual system over the ensuing years. And that the government that we call the United States now is a corporate business in DC, which basically controls all commerce in America. And it seems as though that comes down to the town level, because the town of Wolcott is a franchise of that, since you guys follow Vermont state laws and they follow federal laws. And it's come to attention over our lifetime that this system does not really serve the regular human being on the ground. I think if you just heard about zoning rules and the whole compartmentalization of authority and the whole inability for anybody to take responsibility for these ordinances, rules, regulations, and so forth, has gotten to such a critical point that those of us who are just trying to make our way in the world, not being valued for our labor and being extracted from this United States of America minor, that this civil order basically says that anybody who's acting as the United States of America, which is not, because we know that we the people are the government, and we the people are the civil authorities, and that everything that is under the guise of government is here to serve the people. And if we look at the original intent of any constitution, whether it's the Constitution of America or the Constitution of Vermont, the intent is that it is to protect we as natural beings in the natural world. And any kind of unnatural concentration of power by the few over the many is something that we, as Americans and Vermonters, are obligated to stand up and shift back to the original intent that we are all created equal and that we are all here to enjoy the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. So if you read this specifically, it shows that we have a dual system. It shows that the government in DC is working for the World Banks, for the UN, for the issuance of foreign currency. And if you look at the original intent of our founding fathers, we the people are supposed to issue our own currency. And this is probably the basis of this whole problem. And so we have issued this. We went down and talked to the Secretary of State of Vermont a week and a half ago. We issued one of these to her. I issued this to Mark, Washington County Sheriff. So we're going around as the civil authority. So we, the people, we're taking on the responsibility as it's written in the Constitution of both the United States and Vermont to, when in the course of human events, we stand up against concentration of power by the few to throw off any kind of tyrannical power that subdues the ability for us to live these lives in the way that we wish. So the problem is that we have normalized this whole commercial way of government. So that there is a class system now where if you are unable to have your life value appreciated by an hourly wage, and you have all the demands of goods and services which way outpace that, then you necessarily have to choose between heating your house, putting tires in your car, eating, clothing your children. And we know, all of us, I assume from experience, that this situation has gotten worse and worse over the years. And so Timothy and I have taken the responsibility to set the civil order to say it's time to readdress the way that we are serving the original intent of our founding fathers and the Constitution of Vermont. So if you read through this thoroughly, you can see that there is a clear, that clearly any of these departments and offices, even FEMA, we're talking about this recent flood and the summer flood. FEMA is a private business that makes money through insurance companies at the expense of those of us who can't earn enough because the money is issued through debt, right? The debt system. And it's a very complicated system that's been created over the years in terms of our economic, political, and social revenue streams, right? We know that capitalism exists because the economy grows at 3 to 4% a year. So that means every single year you have to create 3 to 4% more revenue streams. Well, disaster capitalism is very lucrative. So whenever we have a big flood, FEMA is able to capitalize for those who issue the currency at the expense of those of us whose lives are not valued because of our wages and expenses. So again, it's a long conversation, but we're just issuing this so that you are informed that we are going around, and this isn't word not written by us, but we're distributing it, and you can see that it was distributed to us through a group in Maine. But there are all kinds of Americans who are taking this seriously and saying that this form of government that has been handed down to us no longer works. It no longer works for the majority of us. And so we just need to have a conversation about how we're going to shift it back so it actually does serve the people.
Okay. Any questions for Eric and Timothy? Comments?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Monica.
So are you Wolcott residents?
You'll have to explain what the intention of that question is.
Do you live in Wolcott, Vermont?
I live in the geographic region of Keeler Pond.
Thank you.
In terms of being, no, I'm not finished. In terms of being a resident, that is completely tied to the issuance of current. And there's trust, and it's a complicated subject.
It's actually somewhat threatening to ask someone to identify as a resident because what it does is it puts you in a jurisdictional place where you are under the authority of those who define what a resident is.
So you are sitting in the meeting of the lawmaking body of the town of Wolcott. And I am a resident of the town of Wolcott. And I acknowledge that the select board is the lawmaking body of the town of Wolcott. And it seems to me that I don't want to fight with my neighbors, as you seem to be very contentious of my simple question. Okay, so I'm going to mute my mic and be quiet. It is not my intention to fight with my neighbors. If you are residents of Wolcott, I was simply asking if you were. And apparently you're not really comfortable with giving me that answer, so I'm done with asking. Thank you. It is nice.
Yes, and we're not trying to be contentious. We understand that it's a very complicated situation. The problem is that legal terminology matters when you're speaking in a legal body. And so we have to be very careful about what terms we agree with and how we identify with them. This is part of the whole problem of this process, is that attorneys control the legal language. So it's, again, I apologize for the reaction to that. It's just, that's part of the conversation going forward.
I think if I could help justify why I was about to ask the very same question, is that we are funded with tax dollars, and if you guys are not somehow either directly or indirectly contributing to the taxpayer basis in the town, I'm not sure that we have the relevance that this conversation is relevant to us. It seems as though you guys either do, or you're either directly or indirectly contributing to our tax basis, you know, by living, residing is probably not the right word, by existing on Keeler Pond.
And have it, we have had.
Sure.
Is more universal, like we're being, has things on there.
Okay.
So, yes, so the question you're raising is the question, right? Because you right now are acting as an official of the town of Wolcott. Right, which is a qualification of your natural state as a man born on this earth,
Sure.
right? So it's a title. You're a select board member, but the sign in front of you with your name is a title.
Sure.
And so what we're addressing is, can you be a man and a titled select person at the same time? Is that a conflict of interest in the system we have? And I'm going to say it's a conflict of interest because you have to follow the rules of the office that you're serving, which if you want to look at this whole system, you are then talking about revenue, which is issued by a private currency issuer, the Federal Reserve, which is not part of America. It's part of the International Monetary Fund. And so you therefore are attached to the problem of corporate, because the town of Wolcott is a corporate entity, which is under the corporate entity of the state of Vermont, which is under the corporate entity of the United States. And that's the situation that we're addressing here. So we're at odds, you and I, because I am a natural being first and only. I do not qualify myself. I do not identify. I do not identify. I am Eric. I don't have a name. My person has a name, which is the only way that any corporate entity can interact with me is through a documented thing, starting with the birth certificate, right? And then everybody is convinced to volunteer to attach to that document as a fictional person. And we just are not educated in this misinformation that's been going on since the 14th Amendment.
In an attempt to expedite this meeting, is there any way that what resources are available to me to learn more about what you're talking about? Because the terms and words that you're using, I don't want to say are meaningless to me because I do follow a lot of them, but I would like to see more of what you're discussing.
You can look at all of the United States Supreme Court decisions for the past 150 years.
Can we boilerplate this into something that I can read in a lifetime?
Saying that it's documented.
I understand that.
It's the history of America, it's the history of Vermont.
Okay.
It's the history of human beings trying to come up with limited government that doesn't impose on their natural rights.
Okay.
So it's a human problem, and I'm not saying that we're going to talk about it tonight in any kind of depth. I'm just saying we're bringing it to you because we want to work with everybody in our community, and neighbors at large, without, distinction between, I live up in West Woodbury. Wolcott delivers my mail, right? Hardwick Electric delivers my power. I'm technically in Washington County. So I'm disenfranchised in terms of the political, economic, social system, right? There's no place I could speak if I followed the civil rules of the current government system. They're gonna say, oh, you're that person on the document. Well, I'm not. I'm a natural being just like you. And I've been here for 30 years. I drive down Brownsville Road when I come through here. I don't have to go through customs when I cross the town line, right? And so the problem is that we've developed a system of, oh, you're looking. you're in Woodbury, you're in Hardwick. And then we have this whole divide and conquer that Rome was brought in.
Also, there's a link on the last page of the handout that has disclosure 101, what you need to know. I guess that was,
There's a 10-page or 12-page document issued on June 10th.
okay.
These were, there's numbers that, certified numbers that went to the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
Yeah,
I mean, basically, it's each individual's responsibility to inform themselves about the reality of the world they live in.
I'm just saying a more concise answer to the question I asked would have been createspace.com/4870915.
But that's, I mean, you can get, there's information and it's information about everything in the world, right?
Serious.
So it's up to you, it's up to each individual to say, what is my reality? Do I agree with Timothy and Eric at all? Do I agree a little bit? Do I want to take any of my time to research this? Is this an important issue? And I'm not here to say anything right or wrong. I'm just here to say that this is very important to me. I take it seriously. I'm coming in to take responsibility as a civil authority.
Thank you.
The civil authority is based on the original intent that all government is for the people in terms of protecting natural rights. So lawyers can get all caught up in words that are written in the Constitution, but the intent behind the words is what carries the day. It's the spirit, not the letter.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for having.
Yep.
And then we hope to continue to collaborate on this. Disparity of our towns.
Thank you. So we're about 20 minutes behind, so we need to get on to the presentations by the Lamoille County Planning Commission. We'll move the potential wastewater grant to the bottom because Seth won't be with us and I'll be discussing that. So Flatiron Road flood mitigation, possible funding. Alex?
Yes, good evening, Linda. Yeah, so as you hopefully remember, SLR came and did a presentation on their 10% designs a few months back.
Yep.
So we got a cost estimate from SLR for 30% designs with all the permitting and environmental review that would be needed for the Flatiron Road project. And there's two funding opportunities coming up. There's the Building Resilience Infrastructure and Communities program, the BRIC program, as well as HMGP. The BRIC program is the deadline's coming up. It's in January. But that program, I believe Wolcott is eligible for a reduced match of only 10%. And just to give an example, the cost estimate that SLR gave is about 65,000. So the match for BRIC would be roughly 6,500. For HMGP, that's a rolling application. So we can help you apply anytime for that one. But that would be a 25% match, so roughly 16,000. Both of these are set to be awarded sometime fall next year. So they're relatively both on the same timeline. Just HMGP you can apply for later than the first 2 weeks of January. So we just wanted to get the town's feelings, and if you're interested one way or another, we're happy to help apply for that application.
So when we had the presentation, we had a 10% design. Is this an additional 30%, bringing it up to 40, or is it all included?
Yeah, so this would just be, they call them 30% designs. It's any kind of preliminary design, after which, you go for final design and implementation.
Okay, so thinking to the future, if we move forward with this preliminary design, what does it look like out there for funding for the 100% design and implementation? Are there other grants out there?
Yeah, so for a project like this, you can go through this same brick program for final design and implementation. Um, it's a fairly large project, so that might push it up to be an HMGP application for final design, or sorry, for implementation. Um, but those are kind of the two avenues that Seth and I have seen, working best for this project.
So it's HMPG, is that hazard mitigation something? Was that
Hazard
stand for?
mitigation planning grant.
And that's 25%?
Yes.
Is that money through, so where's that money come from? Is it money that's left over from FEMA for the flooding? Is it, what money is that?
Yeah, so that money is the money that's available through FEMA after a disaster.
And do you have to do like the cost ratio benefit and all that?
Yep, both of these would include BCA, which SLR would just do on your behalf, I believe.
So we had the presentation, we decided what ones we liked, I'm not sure if this is the presentation, which ones we picked, but, how's the board feel about moving forward? This had to do with, that sandbar, removing the bridge abutments. And,
Debris around them.
and then the flood plain restoration on the other side.
Yeah, we talked about pulling like, what, 20,000 yards of gravel out and the bridge abutments. As I recall, it was options 4 and 5 we were interested in.
Not moving the road.
Not moving the road
No,
at this time.
it's too confusing with it having to rebuild that and then these things. I mean, this is more preventative measure for the future.
And once you have the road back in there, you can plan later for moving it and all that, right?
So what's the board's pleasure?
We don't know yet how much FEMA would be giving us.
That has nothing to do with FEMA.
Yeah, okay. But it's left over.
Well, it has nothing to do with our leftover FEMA money.
Okay.
Right,
Once you have FEMA comes in, then a percentage, I don't know what the percentage is, let's say 10% of all the costs to repair Vermont projects, 10% of that goes into a pot for mitigation to prevent future flooding.
And this is a good project.
But that one's at 25%. If there's an option of doing it for 10% in the beginning.
Yeah.
Makes more sense if the board
And the
wants to move forward.
deadline on that application was January what now? January.
Alex?
Sorry about that. Yes, January 12th, I believe. So, if that's the way the board leans, then we will work with the town and SLR to pull this application together, as fast as we can for you guys.
Is that something that's doable? For you?
I think so.
That
Yeah.
timeframe?
I think between Seth and I and, we can pull a lot of it from SLR's report, for the for the future scoping. So I think it's very doable. Yeah.
Okay. So we still have ARPA funds left that we could,
Do your 25%?
10%. I mean, if we apply through the BRIC program and we get denied, we still have time to go the other route for 25%. If we vote for that.
There's no harm in the application. I say we try to do the least expensive option.
All right, so we have a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Any further discussion? So the motion on the table is to have LCPC apply through the BRIC program for 30% design, preliminary design of the Flatiron Road flood mitigation. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Linda. And just real quick, would there be a particular town staff member you would want us to coordinate this with, or just with you, Linda?
What coordination, you mean like signing the,
Yeah,
Grant?
just, yeah, if there's any, yeah, just, you know,
Yeah,
sending it for
you
signature.
can just, yeah, email me.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Tori,
Hello.
thank you for waiting. Tori's here to talk to us. She want to present a Lamoille Valley Rail Trail Community Grant ideas.
Yeah, thank you for the time on your busy agenda tonight. The Lamoille, the LVRT Community Grant Program is accepting applications through January 8th. It's a grant program enabled by an earmark through VTrans. The purpose of the grant is to fund improvements to trail amenities and improve the visitor experience in towns along the LVRT. Towns like Wolcott are eligible to apply for different projects, including trail, sidewalk, or bike lane connections, and just improving connections in general around town. And so I know that Megan from my office has also been working with the Planning Commission on related projects for improving connectivity between green spaces and other areas in the village. So this potential scoping study under this LVRT community grant could assess different bike ped connections between village areas such as the general store and the town forest and elementary school and the recreational field area. And there's other previous efforts in the town, including a walking audit back in 2013 and different goals in the town plan a scoping study like this could support. So if you're interested, we could also help you apply for this grant and do a scoping study for connections between the LVRT trailhead and areas in town. And I can speak more to a potential budget if this idea is of interest to you.
So both Deb and Michael are on the Planning Commission. I don't know how this would interact. Would this complement what you're working on, or?
Yeah, I think so, considering we had been working on we were going to do a walking audit. I participated in one in Marshfield this fall, and so I think that we are still interested in seeing what potential might exist to get from the rail trail to Route 15 and other areas.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're suggesting a scoping study? Sorry.
Yep. There you can apply for scoping studies, and then if there's future rounds of this grant, you can also apply for design construction projects. the scoping study would be a 20% local match. And I got a rough cost estimate from a consultant. Consultant time would be to do 1 to 3 potential routes around $50,000. And with the inclusion of project management costs, local match would be around $11,000.
The deadline.
January 8th. I had a question. So do you think in the future, if we moved forward with this, and got the study, would it fall under, the alternative, transportation grant?
I think it
I
could.
hate to do a study that sits there, so I'm just thinking of if, we decide to move forward with it, where is it gonna go? Where are we gonna get the money?
Yeah, I mean, this grant program also has design construction funding in the future. The transportation alternatives program might be an option, and other bike ped programs through V-Trans.
If we were approved for the grant, are we committed to spending that money? I mean, same thing I said before, what's the harm in an application?
I mean, you don't have to accept the award, but there would be a letter of support and commitment of match required from the town.
See,
Well, that's why I was asking the people on the planning commission who are working on that, they,
We kind of know what we need to do.
yeah, I feel like we,
Do it and
This-
have money, but
this feels,
to spend $11,000, to be told what we need to do when we know what we need.
yeah, this feels a lot more like the TA grant that we went through
Yeah, yeah,
and elected out of.
yeah.
But in the future, if you guys come up with a plan, can we apply for something? Not just coding, but the actual doing. Is that this grant for that?
so Tori, okay, if we bypass the scoping study. Would that, but we wanted to build it. And we knew how we wanted to build it. Would we really have to go backwards and go back and have some kind of scoping study or engineering study to get the funding? What would be required of us to apply and get the funding?
Well, if you just wanted to do the design construction projects, it's moving a concept through design, permitting, and construction. So
Yeah.
there might be other avenues for building out the concept than a formal scoping study, but I'm not positive that it won't be required. Which probably isn't a very good answer. And I understand if this isn't feeling like an appropriate project at this point.
Yeah, I just don't think so, to spend money, no,
2 floods in 6 months. We're not sure what the future of School Street looks like.
no.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Yeah, it was just a specific opportunity that towns along the LVRT are eligible for, so I thought I'd just bring it before you, but I respect the times and um, if it's not appropriate, that's cool.
I'm assuming it's probably a yearly renewing grant, so there's always next year if it does come up, if it's interested in it.
For now, yep.
So Deb, what is your grant for the planning commission? What are you gonna get out of it at the end? Anything we can use? The town?
There's a plan, you know, there's a list of, you know, things that we could do, you know, so I don't know if that would qualify, you know, as, or replace a scoping study so that we could jump to the design and construction grant stage.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we could try that. I'd prefer to try that than do another scoping study because that just seems like beating your head against a brick wall.
No, I mean, I will just say the health equity TA pilot you guys worked on earlier this year didn't provide you things like assessing right of ways and environmental impacts and cost estimates and some of the more like specific technical details that you might need later down the line. I think that was just more of community engagement and idea generation and not as tangible an outcome as something like this might provide for you.
And maybe I don't understand what scoping means. How detailed would it be?
Just greater detail than the health equity TA pilot. Just, you know, laying out drawings and providing cost estimates and, you know, putting more lines and numbers on paper than just like general ideas and words.
So Kurt and I met 2 summers ago with I forgot Kate from the planning commission talking about, you know, walkability along School Street, you
Yeah.
know, in anticipation of the bridge. And she came up with the idea of, you know, having a large sidewalk on one side, you know, painted flat so that traffic, it would slow traffic down because they'd only really have, you know, one lane unless no one was in the crosswalk, in the walkway. So people can bike and so forth. So what I'm getting at is, I guess, would that be part of like a scoping study to bring the details of that out, knowing what our town right of way was and.
Yeah. Exactly. But it is a lot of money and I know other towns have applied as a consortia grant application under this in the past. So if it's maybe something you'd like to wait a year on and collaborate with other towns in the region, that might be an option as well.
Is this just comes around once a year?
Yeah, I think for currently it's still based on an earmark. So I'm not sure how many more years into the future the funding will exist, but as far as I know, it'll continue to be around for now.
Well, I like it. I feel like that, we're not ready for it quite yet.
Okay.
My personal feeling, but we'll take a vote. You know, the bridge hasn't even been built yet with a sidewalk on it. Maybe other opportunities would come up, like a planning grant. I know we need to redo our town plan. But that's my opinion right now. Anyone else have any thoughts?
I tend to agree. I don't think that we're there yet.
I think we need to wait a year, get the bridge in, get other infrastructure straightened out.
So, yeah, I think the board has decided we will, wait a year for now. We really
No.
haven't had an opportunity to really know what it's like to have the rail trail up for very much.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, so I again
Right.
appreciate you hearing me out and
Yeah. Well, thank you for thinking of us, though.
Yeah.
Uh, We appreciate that.
thank you, and I
Thank
hope you
you.
guys have a great
Yeah.
rest of your night.
Thanks. Seth is up at the school board meeting with the school board to decide whether they'll allow us to have the wastewater leach field up there at the school. But he has drafted a letter for me. And basically, this letter is requesting an additional 1.205 million from the state in ARPA funds for the funding gap for the wastewater project. So basically, I'm asking you tonight to approve applying for this request and having me sign it. It's additional monies for the wastewater. We've received the 2.5 million, 250,000. The 800,000's gone through 2 steps and it seems promising, but this is an additional 1.205. Just to close the funding gap, and make this system, affordable to the taxpayers in Wolcott.
When will we know about the 800,000? Do we have any idea?
I would say in a few weeks.
Does it make sense to wait until we have that answers so that we could potentially request another 800,000?
Well, the 800,000 is a different grant.
Right, but if we get denied for that,
Uh-huh.
would this number look more like 2.2? Or, I'm sorry, 2.05?
Well, this is already the same funding that we received the 2.5 million. I'm not sure if they would give us another 2 million. I don't know.
Okay.
Let me read the letter so you understand it better, why Seth, came up with this. The town of Wolcott respectfully requests an additional 1,205,000 in state ARPA through the Vermont Department of Conservation, DEC Village Water and Wastewater Initiative to close the funding gap for Wolcott's proposed community wastewater system. This established funding gap is based on the cost estimates in the preliminary engineering report for the community wastewater system in June 2023 with a 50% contingency. In addition to the general increase in construction costs, the need for additional funding is driven by the following factors. The need to flood-proof all system components to the 500-year flood elevation. Flood-proofing costs have yet to be incorporated into the cost estimate. Wolcott has experienced 2 major flood events in the last 6 months, highlighting the importance of constructing a highly resilient system. Compliance with federal Built America, Buy America, BA requirements. The project will likely be required to comply with BABA and other federal requirements. As a new requirement, the full impact of BABA on the cost of village wastewater system components are not fully known and thus difficult to estimate, warranting a conservative contingency. Impacts of recent flood events. Wolcott was heavily impacted by the July 2023 flood. And then again, early this week during the December 2023 flood. The town has been forced to borrow significant funds to aid in flood recovery and reconstruction. Further potential buyouts of flood impacted properties have the potential to reduce Wolcott's already limited local tax base. This diminishes the town ability to borrow and to take other large projects. Town of Wolcott respectfully requests an additional 1.205 thousand in state ARPA funds to close this funding gap. Closing this funding gap will drastically improve affordability for future system users and the community as a whole, and will improve the chances that the system is ultimately approved by Wolcott voters this fall. DEC past support has been critical to reaching this milestone. We respectfully request these additional funds to help bring this critical project to fruition. So this isn't a grant or anything. This is a beg.
Yes.
I mean, I think I have just one. Where it says this fall, isn't it this spring? If you're gonna do it in March, at town meeting.
No, we're not doing it in March.
You're not.
No,
June.
June.
So
June 11th.
fall is incorrect still.
Where's that?
The next to the last paragraph. At the very end.
By Wolcott's
False,
yeah.
In summer.
should be summer 2024. If you want the correct.
Okay, I'll bring that up to Seth and he can fix it and send me a clean copy to sign.
Cause I'd hate to have them say, oh yeah, we'll give it to
Yeah.
you in August or
Mhm.
September, you actually want June
Mhm.
or sooner.
Well, whatever. I can do that.
Then I'm all for it.
I just need a motion to approve
Sending letter.
sending the letter.
I'll make
Have a-
that motion.
You and
Send it with
Michael.
that correction.
Okay. So we have a first and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? So carried. Okay, finally, budget hearings. So you're up, Dylan, first.
All right. I'll start by touching on this Monday, our events on Monday. We took pretty significant damages, spread out across the whole town, on a list of roads. I think I've been on 11 or 12 roads so far, filling in washouts and fixing culverts and stuff like that. 22 loads out of Menasha's quarry should be around $6,000. And as of right now, everything's open and passable. And I'm sure I'll need a little bit more moving forward. Hopefully not too much. With that being said, Corley Road is the most significant damage that we took. I'd say with a rough measurement that I did, I think we lost about 350 to 370 yards of gravel. There's a lot of it that's still right there in the field. And as long as it is okay, I would like to take our excavator and our loader and try to reclaim as much of that as I can. I think there's probably 10 or 12 loads that I could salvage out of the field. And buy whatever we need beyond that. With that being said, the gravel, some of it out in the field, it is way out of our right of way. How does everybody feel about that?
I think we just need to reach out to the farmer, but I think he would be happy to have it off his cornfield. But someone needs to reach out and have some kind of permission from him.
I get you, Doug. Number.
Is it Nelson?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, if you could give me his number, it'd be good.
Yeah, he called me last time, wanted it out.
That's what I'd like to do, because I don't know, it doesn't really seem like FEMA's gonna get in on this one. So as cheap as we can do it, the better. Other than that, no big culvert damages, anything like that, just surface gravel. So it's pretty hard to gauge loss, like out here on East Elmore Road where it was totally underwater, it's all scoured. And there was enough there to just grade it over and make it work for the time being, but I'm sure we lost some there too. Pretty much gotta take a guess. Anybody have any questions on any of that?
No, but thank you.
Okay. The plan in spring. Oh, go ahead, Kurt.
Oh, I was clearing my throat, but thanks, Dylan.
Oh, all right.
No, that's good. That's good. So we're moving into the budget discussion. And I think that we've taken a little different approach this year, which is a very positive approach. And that is to try to lay out the projects that we anticipate or the road crew anticipate over the course of the new fiscal year. And then try to match the budget to that, to those projections. And so I thought maybe Dylan, you could go, if you don't mind, kind of going through anticipated projects and getting questions about that. And then we can kind of go through the numbers.
Yeah, I'll leave the flood culverts out of it. That'll be hopefully doing that first thing in the spring so we can put that behind us, but beyond that, grant aid work, Keeler Pond, we'll do that. That got delayed this summer because of the flood, and we got a time extension on it, so that was good. Aside from that, we'll get another grant aid this year. I'm assuming I'm gonna have to get with Alec from LCPC and kind of go over the map and the most critical areas. And that'll determine where we spend our money, our grant money for that this year as well. As far as just regular projects that I see that needs to be done, East Hill ditching and shoulder berm removal along the flats near Wolcott Pond is one of the places that I've got my eyes on. The same thing on Town Hill. Pretty much from the pavement all the way to the crossroad. Maury Hill ditching. Elmore Bond Road on the Elmore end, like the last from Wing Road to the town line. And I'd like to do some work from Couchane Corner down this way too. Sand Hill, the bottom part of Sand Hill where we left off with our grant aid 2 years ago, I think. That could be a good place to use our grant aid money this coming year. Paving got pushed back because of bad weather. So I've been in touch with Norm from Pike, and the plan is to come in the spring, early in the spring, and do our grant work on the North Wolcott Road.
Mine, Bill,
Say it
you have
again.
that in mind.
Just more than one.
Oh. And are you starting at the bottom or the top?
We're starting at Route 15. And we're going all the way to somewhere near the Gulf Road. And then we'll start again in North Wolcott, just below Bob Vise's house. Go all the way through North Wolcott, stop by Richard Lee's. And then we'll do the last like 1,200 feet to the town line. There's a bad section through there. Aside from that grant, other pavement work that I would like to do is the top of Town Hill. The top like 1,200 feet up there is in super rough shape. I'd like to ditch that and replace whatever culverts are underneath that section of road and reclaim it. And pave a base and a top coat. That's gonna kind of hinge on if we have enough money in our budget for it or not. I think it's gonna be pretty close. It's hard to say without getting a quote.
On the topic of culverts under new pavement, the ones on the North Wolcott Road where you plan to pave, do we have an inventory and a condition on those?
No, I still need to look at them. I did think that, I'm glad.
I see you've got, you guys talk about an additional 4 20 inches here when you're talking about routine culvert replacement. I didn't know if that 4 included any potential that may have to be replaced in that paved section.
No, four culverts a year is kind of like ones that pop up that, all of a sudden, something happens. So a car goes off the road and runs it over. Or you're ditching somewhere and you come to it and it's like, oh, this thing's pretty bad.
Or we get a clean.
Where we get a couple, yeah. Beaver control. The bottom of the Keelan Road where we've had, I don't even know how many times we've gone up there and unplugged that thing. I got a hold of the Beaver resource manager, whatever he is. And I had him come out and look at it and he told me to hire a trapper. So that's what I did and it solved the problem. For the moment. But he said that in the spring, it can come back. And it's a pretty lenient, informal sort of grant thing that they do. And he'll build us a cage around the end of the culvert to deter the beavers. And he told me that it would be like $400 that the town would have to dish out, which in my opinion, I think you spend $400 every time you go up there to unplug it with, labor and equipment and everything.
So would that stay there?
Yep.
And that's the only place that we really have the beavers?
Right now, yes.
Require periodic maintenance, you gotta go in and clean the cage from.
I don't think so. What that guy says, if you build that thing in the shape of a triangle away from the culvert, the beavers will start damming up where the water, the closest to the culvert, and it's not natural for them to work away from the sounds of running water, so they'll abandon it.
Clever.
Interesting.
Yeah. Signs, that's always.
People love us.
They love signs. So yeah, we'll be replacing at least 10 signs again next year, I'm sure. Guardrail installation out here on School Street, just before the Flatiron Road. There's a bridge that goes over here and the rails are super low. Those need to be reset. So that is the plan for those.
And they seem to have gone up in price too, the guys. Lafayette.
Yeah, I think I've only had any guardrail work done once since I've been here, so I don't really have much compared to. Ball field parking lot, I don't know too much about that. What's the plan there?
Well, the people that really want it is sitting in back of you.
Okay.
And they are hoping that they can get in there when the ball season starts.
April,
Okay. Are we wanting to just fix the parking lot that's there, or are we redoing the whole thing, like we talked about at the meeting that we had?
You mean for the snowmobilers?
Yeah, remember we met with Rob?
Right. I don't know where that ever went. I think for now, but Kurt is the one that put it in there.
The ball field parking lot,
Yeah.
right? Yep. Yeah, I think that, that there's two needs for the ball field parking lot. One is to reclaim it from the flood so that the athletic and recreation committee has a place to go and a place to park. And in doing so, we'd want to keep in mind that this is a really an ideal parking spot for snowmobilers and their extended trailers. So we don't have a design specifically right now, but I think that the location is such that we could pretty easily design it and level grade it and get it ready for the spring as soon as the ground allows, and then start to modify it for snowmobiles in the future.
We're gonna have to get some permits too.
Yeah, we're very close to the water there.
And a lot of it flooded even recently when I went by. There was one high spot, but
Yeah.
so we need to find out from the state whether we can even do it.
Yeah.
Without that, can we replace what we lost?
Yeah, they need to have access to get into their part, but that additional thing is a further discussion.
further down towards the bridge. So what, put back what was.
Has something happened here? Did I lose everybody?
Oh, we're still here.
Oh, okay.
Computer. I can't find my notes.
So at this point, I guess it's putting it back so people could, yeah, I don't know what level grade means, but yeah.
Well, that really just means to grade it so that we're not getting, a lot of runoff off, regular runoff. So it's just grading the existing turf there.
Yep.
Okay.
Do you remember how much our share was for paving? Do you remember what we have to pay for that?
Thing,
How much? 20%?
percent.
Okay. So in this budget, we have, for paving,
57.
right? And are we gonna use all that?
No, the grant that we got, I can't remember the exact number, but we'll have a little bit left over.
$200.
Yeah, roughly.
Paving.
It's a little
Grant
less,
was for 200,
Over, a little over.
little over.
Yeah.
Right?
like 238.
So we'll have a little bit left over.
So do you think that, he will pave by June 30th?
Yeah.
All right. So if he doesn't, you really need to come to us so that we motion to save that paving money or it will disappear.
Okay.
If it isn't done by June 30th and spent, it's gone.
I'll probably come to you anyway to save whatever is left left over to use it toward townhouse.
Mhm. Okay,
Bridge cleaning. Clean off all the bridges, and I'll collaborate with Jimmy Holton to have him wash them as well. When the dust settles after mud season and.
How much do they charge you?
Yeah.
Is Jimmy charge?
Is there anything I didn't touch on, Carrie?
I'm sorry, is that?
Is there anything that I didn't touch on that you wanted me to?
Yeah, no, thanks for going over these. I think this is a very complete set of projects. And when you think of time involved in accomplishing these projects, this will be pretty much the entire dry weather season. I do want to mention that the annual maintenance activity of the road crew, which is essentially ditching, berm removal, grading, the winter sand transport, etc., consumes a pretty significant amount of time, of the road crew's time, just based on general maintenance. And so we're estimating that that is about 75% of their time. And so, as you can see, the rest of the projects that come in are going to really consume every bit of the season. Equipment maintenance is a critical area. We do have new equipment. We have equipment that's under warranty, but we do have equipment that requires significant and constant maintenance. We also have 2 older trucks that require that same amount of maintenance plus about 50%, just because they're older. And you'll see that in the budget that those older trucks are costing us over time. They're very, very expensive, and maintaining what we have is absolutely critical. The contractor projects, I think, are kind of self-explanatory. Obviously, Flatiron and the slides need to be handled by contractors. And paving is a contractor activity, as well as guardrails and roadside mowing. I did put together another, just some kind of interesting facts that where we're really getting impacted is in material price increases. Unfortunately, I didn't have the time to do 100% comparison pricing, but it's suffice to say that it's anywhere from 20% to 50% price increases over the past 2 years for materials. And that is the most impactful component of the entire budget. I thought it might also be helpful for the board just to kind of get a view of the comparative highway budgets from some of our surrounding towns relative to the mileage of road mileage that they are charged with maintaining. And Wolcott is kind of right in there, but given the road mileage, I think that we're actually a little short of where we might be in a competitive in a relative area from some other towns. Last year, several towns in the county and our neighboring towns did some very significant road budget increases from 10 to, I think one of them was up to 100% increase across the board. So I just want to give that relative value. As far as the increase that we have determined, Dylan had spent some time with this, looking across the budget, as well as myself. And I'll start on the budget with where we're going to end up on the budget, or this proposed budget. And that'd be at about $822,000, which is a 9.5% increase. Which the way we came to that number, and next you'll have the spreadsheet in front of you, was to go down where we know that we need to increase because of materials, because of certain projects. And at the same time, we took the projects that Dylan outlined and we decreased some portions of the budget to match those projects. I've kind of seen this every year when you go down the road budget. There's areas that we fall woefully short, and then there's other areas where we fall woefully high. In other words, we don't spend that money. And so this was an attempt to try to balance that a bit so that we could get a relatively good number for a road budget increase. So the first one, of course, is labor. The yellow lines, by the way, represent an increase, and the gray lines represent a decrease. So if we kind of jump down the P&L here, the first line is going to be labor, and that is by contract going to be 3%. Next is the town garage phone, which is, I think we're running, our budget is a little high on that. So it's come from $1,800 to $1,200, which I think is probably a more realistic match. From there, we go to electric, which is about a 13% increase, which I think is consistent with what we're finding from the utility providers. And it's what we're seeing in some of our billing. The highway department janitor also is assumed at 3%, but that is truly a board decision on what you want to do. The road crew themselves are locked in at 3%, but otherwise that's a board decision. Coming down to gas, diesel, heat, oil, all of those energy components would come up 11%, which I think is consistent with what we're finding from Bourne's and our other providers. We've reduced signs by about $1,500, and the reason for that is that we did secure a state grant to provide Wolcott with safety signs, which include stop signs, which were woefully, I don't know what happens to stop signs, they just disappear. But we do have a grant. I've been in communication with them, and this spring, summer, they will actually be doing the installation of those signs. Uniforms were, this is a little bit of an anomaly that Dylan and I have talked about. We're not locked into this uniform company that we're using right now, but there seems to be an increase in price. It's kind of hard to detect, but if I look at year to date and do a run rate on it, it definitely, something's happening there. It's getting much higher. So we agreed, or the common agreement with the road crews, we should look into some alternative providers, because this seems to be getting quite expensive for uniforms. Parts and repair is a critical area, and we are currently at 107% of our budget halfway through the year, and quite honestly, that's not going to stop. My experience with the equipment and the work that the road crew has to do with this equipment is that these older trucks are enormously expensive to keep them running. They do break all the time, and that's not a result of poor maintenance. I can assure you of that. It's just the nature of the beast. A great big snowplow is going to take a beating. And so I think even in past years, we've always come short in this area. And so there's proposed to increase that by 100,000, or I'm sorry, 100%. Small equipment tools, we can tone that down. There doesn't seem to be a run rate that suggests that we need to keep a high budget for that. Again, now we're going to get to chloride and the raw materials, and this is where we really need to make an adjustment. I don't think that we made these adjustments over the past several years with inflation. And before that bubble, gets too big, I think this might be an opportunity to flatten it out and to meet the demands of inflation. So chloride is going up about 80%. Paving, because of the project list that Dylan has put together, we don't have a lot of paving that needs to be done, so we can anticipate a reduction there. Culverts are the same way. I know on the project report, we talked about 4 culverts really kind of in general every year in the normal year. I upped it to 6 culverts, and they have gone up very significantly over the years.
Do we have any in stock?
The only ones that I have in stock are already spoken for the grant on Killer Pond.
Yeah. So what this represents here is 6 culverts. We may or may not need to use all of them, but I went on the generous side and said these are 20-inch culverts, 20 feet long, 40 feet long. So we averaged the price of those. And so even with that, we can reduce our culvert budget. Again, gravel, sand, and clay are raw commodities. Again, it's going to go up 33%. And then coming down, we did have a decrease in health insurance. And that is a result of the road crew changing their family plans, maybe going to another plan, a spouse's plan. But that has allowed us to reduce the insurance number. Where are we? Bridge repair. We have a big budget for bridge repair in the past, $7,500. I don't know that we have a lot of bridge repair that needs to be done. We did have the debris removal. The Corley Road Bridge is in good condition. The Pond Road Bridge is in good condition. The Gulf Road Bridge could use some new fascia. So we've kept $2,500 in for that. School Street Bridge is obviously being handled in a completely different fashion through the state. Winter sand, another raw commodity, but it is not increasing at the same rate as other commodities are. So we got an 11% increase there. And class 2 construction, we've been, again, we have $2,000 in class 2 construction, and realistically, we need to double that. By the way, class 2 construction will include the kinds of things that Dylan is talking about laying out gravel, getting roads like the Corley Road, back up to snuff.
Wait a minute, we can't, those are all class 3 roads. Class 2 roads, we're only responsible for bridges and culverts.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You're
Oh.
right. I was thinking.
So I
class 3.
wondered what our plan was for class 2 road, other than
2 or 4.
2. Huh? Oh, two is the North Wolcott Road.
North Wolcott and Elmore Pond Road.
Yeah,
Right.
first part.
And this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And we just went through a refurbishing project with the Elmer Pond Road. That's not to say that it's not going to need maintenance. We definitely need to maintain it. But we've put the money in already. So we're anticipating we're not going to have to put a lot of money in next year. And then that'll take us all the way down to class 3 roads, which we have budgeted 41,000 for. And I think with Dylan's experience and the activity that we have on class 3 roads, which now does include the Corley Road, is going to require a significant increase. Guardrails, as Dylan pointed out, we really did the guardrail work this year. So we really have one left, so we decreased the budget for that. And of course, miscellaneous expense is being decreased simply because we're not using very much of it. And that brings us to a bottom line of $822,000 or a 9.47% increase. That increase again is raw materials, 1, and 2, I think class 3 roads have had we've had a short budget for some time. And it's always the budget that we run over on. So this is an adjustment for that.
So, with this 95% increase on class 3 construction, do we have the time to do that
Yeah.
in 1 year? And where will the cost go to?
So with the budget that we have now, 41,000, with buying gravel from someone else, because we don't have our own pit, it's about 1,585 a yard. We've got enough money to buy about 2,500 yards of gravel per year, which is enough to resurface a mile of road. That is if we have a perfect spring and we don't have a bunch of mud holes to fix, that never happens. We always burn up a good charge of that by April. And then we're left with maybe 25,000-30,000 for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Why do we have separate gravel, sand and clay then? Isn't that what we use that for?
That's a stockpile.
That we use in, mud season?
Yeah, that's what that was my plan for it this year, but I just used it this week.
Used it for flooding or just for now, for this flooding?
It'll cover what we spent so far
Yeah.
that's what I was thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Just understand it's there because if the pit's closed, it's gotta have some material on it.
I think one of the things we discussed is, after this last summer, in which ever since the flood, the soil has been absolutely saturated. And these kinds of rainstorms we're getting now on top of that is just magnifying the amount of water in the soil. And come January, February, with some hard freezes, it could be, we can't predict the future, but given experience that the road crew has, there's a real concern about this mud season being very demanding on gravel, very demanding.
Could be, yes, I agree.
I do have one question for Purple. Under gas and diesel and oil and everything, I thought our propane heating was saving us money. We have a lower rate than we would if we had oil.
You're talking about, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, the propane, you mean?
Yeah, the propane, because we heat the propane now for the town garage. So it's
Right.
cheaper our maintenance.
It is, yeah. So we have a very good price on propane. It is cheaper than oil. You got to keep in mind that we only have one burner up there. And it goes all the time. So it is burning propane. Yeah. You know, we can do some comparison pricing between the oil and propane, and the reason I haven't done it is that after the flood and we had the structure was open before we had the new walls put in, we were really burning up a lot of propane. So yeah.
Well, yeah. But that's one of the things I checked off too, because I thought the price of gas had gone down, like diesel somewhat.
Yeah.
A little bit, about 20.
Okay, well,
Well, it's just a conversation that I checked off of.
yeah, we can do some closer analysis on fuels. Yeah.
Any other questions the board might have of Dylan?
Could I ask a question?
Yeah.
So, I'm feeling a lot of sympathy for the road crew right now when I ask this question, but at some previous select board meeting, budgeting meeting way back in time, there was a scheduling that was taking place regarding riprap on the sides of the road. And I thought that that went into 2026 or something like that. Has, since all of the flooding has taken place, has the state backed off on those requirements?
I think she means.
No, they have not. And it's, we have to do segments to keep the, pollutants out of the, rivers and stuff. No, they haven't backed off. We have, that's what that grant and aid is for. To help us do sections of that.
How did all that riprap hold up with the flooding?
Good, for the most part, good.
Yeah,
Wolcott?
I see an improvement in the roads where we've ditched and put stone in. They don't. It is an improvement.
They did, they stayed good. The struggle, this time was there was a snowbank frozen on the edge of the road and it made it impossible for the water to get off of the road. In a few places, not everywhere.
I say, since you did it to Sand Hill, I mean, 3 years ago when I moved in there, it was constantly washed out, but since you guys have touched it, I
It
mean,
stays pretty good.
yeah, even the big flood we had, what was that, June, whatever? I mean, you guys didn't even come up and touch anything.
No, it stays good.
It's the only road I see.
Is there maintenance required in keeping those ditches cleaned out though?
Oh, yeah, they silt in because we spread sand under them.
Yeah.
Long, and then we plow it into the ditches. They do fill in. They certainly do.
Should that like be on one of these scheduled things or sometimes some kind of rotation of that at some point?
Yeah, at some point. If we could put a plan together.
You don't like to sleep in the summer, do you?
I don't sleep at all anymore. Yeah. They need to be cleaned out. For sure.
And what would that look like? I mean, are we talking about loading the stone in the trucks, bringing it down here, passing it through the grizzly and placing it again, or we?
Tried that, it don't work.
Right?
We need a screen. I understand.
You need a screening.
Need a screen and we need a big area to stockpile all that material and run it through a screen. Or throw it away and buy new stuff. Those are the options. And I've racked my brain trying to figure out a way to.
Come up with a-
screen that in place. and not even have to haul it anywhere, but I haven't, I'm working on it. When I figure it out, I'll be a millionaire.
You lose it.
So the very last line that I want to mention, and I think we're correct on this, but you can correct me if not, and that is the equipment account, which I think we were about $20,000 short last year. And so I've added $20,000 this year because we're going to have exactly the same lease payments, I believe. Yeah. But I think all in all, 9.5% increase for the road, the highways, which is the one thing that the public and the taxpayers care about most. When everything else is failing, if the roads fail, that's when there really becomes a problem. So I think that this is this inflationary catch up, 2 floods. I think it's a very, very reasonable increase, personally.
And I know when the road composition is not all the same, but when you're looking through the list that you put together of the nearby towns, if you do it on a per mile basis, Elmore's spending 15,921 per mile to maintain their roads. Boiling all that down, the average against all the data that you gave us per mile is 17,386, and the new budget is proposed at 13,443 per mile. That still puts us in the low middle of all the neighboring towns as far as what we plan to spend.
Yeah, statistically, yeah. And Wolcott has always had a pretty conservative road budget, a very conservative road budget.
Conservative budget in general.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing I would like to mention is the the staff members per, I guess we could calculate that out per mile as well. But with 3 staff members, this level of projects and this budget is that's very tight, very, very tight. And as a result, we're losing some of our administrative capability. It's just physically impossible to have a 3-man crew with this many miles and have the interruptions that we've had in our regular maintenance. It's and that's why we've had to outsource to contractors to get things done, keep the roads safe and clear. Having said that, we didn't budget for an extra person. I just wanted to make a point that, wow, we could really use one.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dylan, putting that together. It's very informative for us and a lot to think about. It's getting late. It's almost 8 o'clock. I apologize to Clint and he. Yeah, thank you.
Good night. Hopefully you can come in late tomorrow. Like 6. Instead of 3.
We're just, one is a 23-24, looking at this year, which, you guys have already given us $2,000 for, that's in there. And the other one is 24-25, with a projected budget. The third page shows the overall, the first is, it's just income and expenses.
So do you want to walk us through it?
I So I don't think, other than for reference, I don't think you care particularly about the 23-24. The. Okay. The expenses on the 24-25. I've been doing the hats and the uniforms and socks. I've been taking care of that, I think since, 2018. So I've got fairly consistent data that shows where we're at, how many we go through. The hats we've always sponsored. The other replacement stuff is, first aid kits, water. We host an end of year party, which always has expenses. The big addition we're trying to fit in is indoor practice. The school has not let us use the gym unless there was an employee of the school there. So we've either had to pay the janitor to be at the school while we practice, or if we happen to be lucky enough to have a parent, throw in their time. There is Eric Bornman in the Bucks, old Bucks Furniture Building is putting in an indoor facility for indoor practice. And I'm really trying to get some time for all the kids in Wolcott, where a coach can volunteer to go in and take the whole team and use indoor practice there. So that's the only expense here that we haven't had in past years. On the 23-24 budget, you'll see 3 items in yellow. Those are 3 critical items that we can't do without, that we're hoping to get help with. I didn't put any of the excess stuff that was lost in the flood. I put 3 items. I gotta dig the money up for that from somewhere, regardless of whether we get, aid,
So those 23, 24 in yellow,
Yeah.
were those items flooded? Were they in the shed?
The spreadsheet that Keith handed out.
Yeah.
So those are the only items that overlap between the two, and I just wanted to make that really clear.
So they would go, so the insurance is not paying for that, but FEMA would pay 75% of it, but
Linda,
Kurt is just waiting for that.
well, we're in a position where we really need to get the replacement cost item by item, because we are already past the FEMA deadline, and this is going to require a FEMA exception. I've mentioned this in my project report, but there's a catch-22 between municipal insurance and FEMA, and that is that FEMA has already closed the account. Nothing new can be added. And at the same time, our municipal insurance company has just now officially declined several of our claims. And so the question that I have for FEMA is, there's no way that we could have known that some of these claims were going to be denied, and yet FEMA has closed any new activity. So what I'm hearing from FEMA is we really got to hurry up and get these replacement prices to them. All it takes is a spreadsheet, what was lost, what you estimate it's going to cost. You will need to link to a web page or whatever that kind of shows what a replacement cost would be for a backstop or whatever. But I'm getting really nervous that we really need to try to get this done next week. We need to get it in their hands next week.
The spreadsheet that they have, I'm sorry, I don't have it on the computer, but the spreadsheet they have for any bought item, we have estimates and for labor that was talked about last time. But we can get the, we can get the live version of that spreadsheet over, and it does have live links for every replacement item that we were requesting.
Okay. Can you get that you can get that to me, Kurt?
We'll give a copy to Deb to take home.
Okay. Thank you.
And we can send it to you in email form so that you can have the link to it, to the spreadsheet where you can do whatever you need to do with it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sure, thank you, Kurt.
What do you think the time frame is for ordering to have the stuff here in time for you for the season?
March.
So at the end of February, we should know how FEMA's gonna deal with this. Kurt,
Yeah, well, we will, yes, we will.
right, so I think we need to stay in touch, and so we have a meeting, right after the new year with FEMA, and we'll Kurt will present this stuff, and we'll kind of know whether they're gonna accept it or reject it. So
That's
that
correct.
we can go from there in terms of, if they're gonna accept it, then we can go ahead and order it. If they're gonna reject it, we'll have to come up with a new plan.
Right.
But we need to do that in February, not like, the end of March. We need this tomorrow. Okay, so I would be in touch, in the next couple of weeks and see where we stand.
So again, the first week of January.
Yeah, we're gonna meet the first week, so like mid-January or something, how'd you make out? Type of thing.
So if FEMA accepts it and it's 75%, how do we account for the 25%? Does that need to be in the Parks and Rec budget? Or that's moving forward for 24-25 years? Or how would that be accounted for?
The trouble is, normally the state kicks in, they'll kick in 7.5% of that 25. I don't know if they do that for equipment, they do it for roads, so I think I need to find out. Because you get that percentage from the state and it increases, it could be 12.5, and it's based on whether you have your codes and standards, you have your purchasing policy. The only thing we're missing is some kind of emergency flood zoning type regulation, so we don't get the highest. But it's all to do with roads, so I need to find out that, I don't know.
At the same time, it'd be helpful to know that if they approved it, the 25% was not available. If we could curb our scope and eliminate things out of it down to the bare minimum, just so we could, salvage the season.
Did you have a total on this?
It's at the top.
Yeah, so.
Oh.
In line with you guys. So it's
28,000?
It's by area.
28,000? Oh, each one? Oh dear, okay.
biggest difference between this and what we brought you last time is, this has, you know, it has something put in to account for labor for if someone was actually going to be hired, to do the work. And it does also have the repair of the parking lot at the ball field. Or if the town wasn't doing that and it had to be handled separately.
Oh, I see, yeah. Parking lot repairs,
And that totals up to what, $1,200?
not much. 150 and 185.
That's the unit cost.
Okay. Is on this, but my understanding is that's not going to be done, correct? Linda, are we doing a study, flood resilience studies, and that it can't be used anymore? I might be wrong.
We can put back what we have there. The question is, do we want to? And I think before the town spent any money on putting back what's there, we would need to have a conversation about, it would need to be used, yeah, or should something else be there? If it's gonna just be there for, 5 or 6 practice games, I'm not sure.
I would think something like maybe soccer, something like that might be get more use than baseball.
Well, they did say that they used it for practice because the school would not allow them to use that field. So this is
There's no there's no backstop up at the elementary school anymore, so that you're kind of limited to T-ball, you can get away with rookie there when you have to. I know we honestly, we see it used more for the adults playing there is what we saw it used the most for, was even more than, than our little league teams. But one field for 4 teams, it takes some real work at scheduling to make that work, and have, field available for practices for everybody. The local little league has done a lot with, we've standardized game days and times, for our slots to try to help us work around, those issues so that you don't have random scheduling at the same time. It's becoming more manageable to have with only one field, at least for the number of kids we currently have. I definitely put the emphasis on just trying to have one place for the kids to play, this spring by halfway through the season.
Well, it's about it's over $12,000 just going by this. I would figure where that money is.
It's really, it comes down to if there was money available for it that you could get and then put into the field, great, if there's no money available for that field, then that's just the way it is,
As I recall, wasn't part of it the design they were thinking about anyways, moving it down anyways, and stuff down and making space there anyways.
Yeah, Key knows about it. He was there. So we're gonna move the parking area. It wouldn't be usable this year, I don't think.
We had that conversation.
And if you looked, that second area didn't get flooded this last time at all. Cause I drove down there, just the other one, and the whole ball field got flooded again.
Yeah.
But this summer they're gonna start the construction on that. Clean up all the debris.
So even if there was some funds available for a replacement backstop and benches, we'd want that pushed into the future so that it
Yeah.
could be done,
Right.
As part of that, in line with it, and then you wouldn't have to come up, you could rotate the field to match the new parking lot, and it wouldn't cost anything extra.
Right. Okay.
Can I make one?
Mm-hmm.
You guys thought about doing a coin drop?
Well, like the fire department does.
Hardwick and Cambridge, Johnson, quite a few of the towns around here do it for their ball.
Yeah.
leagues, Basketball.
Yeah, that's actually,
softball,
that's a great suggestion.
and it doesn't take that much.
It takes a day or
There's a
so.
weekend and.
Yeah.
I know at one time when I was on the fire department, we could get between 5,000 and 6,000 on a weekend.
I also think if you could do a little bit of outreach to some local businesses, you might find more sponsorship that could also.
Yeah, I think I'm, in the last 8 years, I think I'm the only sponsor of Wolcott baseball.
Well, we appreciate your contribution.
You're the only administrator at this point also, so. So then for the Parks and Recs department, like with all of this happening. All I feel we really need is just porta potty at the park on School Street. And if that athletic association is using the field at the school, if they use it in the evenings and on the weekends, they don't have access to the bathrooms inside. So one up there also for the 3 months of baseball season. And then I've had a request for a portable pickleball court with net and things to set up on the asphalt court there, which seems to be a great idea for a very low amount of money that maybe could be kept here and then checked out to be used. That's kind of all I have from the rec department.
Yeah, I like the idea of having multiple uses for those fields,
Yeah.
not just ball for a short period of time.
And with we have the soccer goals in the field, they withstood the floods. They were completely covered, but they withstood the floods. So they could be moved to either location. I usually set them up after the baseball season, the fence comes down for it down here. And I've seen them used, so that's been great. So.
So you're asking for $1,480 compared to 1,500? Okay.
Kind of the same spot there.
And the athletic association, I'm not sure what you're asking for.
This last year you gave us, 2,000.
Right,
I'd like at least that much again, like right now, we're, I think, a likely deficit. There's close to 3,000, but, we're.
yeah.
We have had county-wide, there's been a lot of talk about fundraising for the league in general and trying to make that thing, at games that, if people go, they can expect some concessions or something, to help, fund the teams. So I'm not opposed to trying to make up some of that.
What is your season usually?
So the first games are usually the last week of April first games last week of April and last games the second week of June. They try not to go any further past the weekend after school lets out.
You guys might be in school till August.
Yeah.
You never know. That's snowy.
What was it you're asking for, 2,000?
Yeah, I'd like at least 2,000.
Okay. Okay, if you do wanna do a coin drive. Drop. Getting tired. You just need to ask the select board and then you have to, and we write a letter. Supporting it, and then you just have to do something for AOT. But if we can help you with that, I know the fire department does theirs at, yeah, Labor Day. So,
But July 4th, I mean, that weekend,
Right.
July 4th might work too.
Memorial Day, whatever,
Yeah.
whenever you can get volunteers. But, we can help you walk through the process. When you're ready.
The best place to do it is over by the.
Right. All right.
No children in the road.
Right, yeah, I got it.
18-year-old.
18.
So we left it that the town highway is going to fix your driveway, hopefully by, mid-April. You're gonna come back to us in January to find out how you made out with FEMA to start getting your supplies, and we have a request for appropriations in our budget. We set?
Great, thank you guys very much.
And I have all that money in Key's budget for those, Corvettes.
Yeah.
Invoice, and I'll reimburse you.
I just wanted to get your phone number, though. I could not find you anywhere.
279. 205.
Okay, thank you so much.
Good night, guys.
Bye. Personally, I'm getting pretty tired. I'd like to make some decisions tonight, a few of them, unless you guys wanna, go on.
Our next meeting is after the new year, 3rd, right?
Or something.
We'll just have Belinda input this into so I've been working with Belinda and she's got the budget, as you can see, the last 2 years, and the red is what people have proposed to us to date. It's not set in stone. And, we can have her add the highway to that. The first question, it is important, that kind of holds up a lot of this is, in the past, but we're welcome to not do it if the board doesn't want to. The road crew has a union contract. This is the last of 3 years coming up. And we negotiated 3% for this upcoming year, and, has been our practice in the past to give that same percentage to all employees to, keep everyone happy. So we need to know what the board wants to do for town employees moving forward.
%3 cost of living doesn't seem egregious to me. It seems fair.
Does anyone else, have anything to say? Thoughts?
At this point in time.
I know. What? You mean the time of day? Yeah.
Too long.
Yeah, I'm getting it too. So can we just make a motion then that, we agree to pay all employees, the same rate that the road crew will get? 3%, so that we can work off the budget some more?
At the time being, yeah.
Yeah, I'll second the motion.
Yep. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, so carried. That's the big one, isn't it, Belinda? So you all have a copy. You'll have Belinda input the highway and the IT. And you can look at, I'm begging you to look at this and go through things. And if you have questions or other ideas for, you know, some things are set in stone and some of them aren't.
You're still waiting for the sheriff's, it's not right, set yet, but I think the communication. Patrol. Apparently they're waiting to hear that.
Well, they're not gonna hear from us.
Okay.
I'd like to put my 2 cents in. on that.
All right, is it all right with the board if we just, I know it's getting late, we really have got to do it at our next meeting, finalize this, but, table the rest of this discussion on the budget and,
Gives us an opportunity to thumb through it.
right. The other thing is you might want to pick up a profit and loss, or I can make some copies before you go and you can, you know, we're at about 50%. So you can go through and see where we stand in terms of expenses. The CAD has already overspent his budget 100%.
Mayor.
So he's online. Sorry, it's like a horse.
Did you want to give us a real quick, project manager report, Kurt? Because we're all melting here.
Sure, I'll be very, very quick. It's all related to insurance. So our municipal insurance has been fully submitted and we are simply waiting for their decision on a settlement. I do want to mention that this goes back to the catch-22 that I mentioned earlier with the rec committee, is that whatever is denied by our municipal insurance theoretically becomes available to FEMA to cover. However, FEMA has already closed any new entries. It's a catch-22. So I need to, first of all, get a settlement from our municipal insurance, present it to FEMA, and they're going to have to get special permission to move forward with it. The second thing is that Federal Highway is going to be submitted. We have all the invoices for that, so that is submitted. And 3 projects from FEMA have been submitted. The FEMA projects I think are okay. We don't see a lot of problem with that. But in terms of getting payment for them, They're gonna come on a project by project basis. So the faster we can get a project completed, by project, I mean the FEMA project. And so if they see a completed listing and supporting evidence from us, they will move forward with that rather than waiting for future issues such as the road slide or the Flatiron Road. So everything is in motion, but I did want to make the board aware of this kind of difficult problem of closing FEMA before we even get a settlement letter from the insurance company.
Well, I think we have good grounds.
Yeah.
And Lucian and I worked for 2.5 hours today, and I worked for another hour. And we have some really good evidence to present on the Town Hill Culver and Jones Road for the cost benefit ratio.
Right.
So probably after the holidays, I will scan it. We'll talk about that, what to do with it.
Okay. Okay. The last thing I'd like to mention is that this IT department listing that Deb just handed out is a starting point, very much a starting point. This was a little bit more of a convoluted issue than I had anticipated. So what I simply did was I took all of the line items that are currently being distributed among different departments, put them together in one list and said, hey, here's the IT list. But the numbers need to be vetted by accounting. Because this is something I did very quickly. I did it today. I'm not confident in the numbers at all. So I just want to let everybody know that I do not use these numbers at this point in time.
All right.
What
The
we're
only
really,
thing I noticed was that we should take the printer out of there because we have a town office equipment fund where actual equipment comes out of.
okay.
But other than that, it looked very detailed. It looked good, a good way to
I think a printer is that for $1,000.
who's it for?
Oh, nobody, like I said, the numbers are, don't use the numbers.
Okay.
Use the list. This is kind of a budget creation, step one. Just create the line items. That's where I'm at.
Well, thank you.
Okay.
Hope you feel better.
Thank you.
Two more quick things, I hope, before, and then we can go. One is we really need to, I sent you the minor revisions to the Wolcott Forest plan. Some of them have to do with the fact that they're not gonna have the trails going across the Elmore Pond Brook because it floods so much. So they've taken some of that out. And I don't know, it kind of cleaned up some language. There wasn't a lot. That it talked a little bit about the artificial pond and earth dam that's up on the Bourne property with minimal hazard. And the recommendation to keep the dam maintained to prevent any potential safety risks. Mostly by removing existing trees on the dam and preventing new growth from establishing. So that will be all put into the plan for the committee to work on. So they just need, they need us to approve these minor changes so they can send it on. They're in the process of starting to send all the paperwork to the US Forest Service for the grant. Uh, It has to all be reviewed by them.
I'll make a motion to approve those minor changes.
We have a second,
I'll second.
okay? Any further discussion?
The thing is, the forest department could take 60 days. Or they could take a year, so the sooner it gets in there,
Yeah,
the sooner these funds might be approved.
especially every time Congress shuts down, it sets everything off, so we're trying to get it in there. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? So carried.
And I have an amendment
To what?
for the store.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's the last one.
sorry. It's like.
Now you're gonna amend the forest plan.
Close. I looked up and I thought you were adjourning. I was like, no.
So our amendment was to approve or disapprove a second-class license for A&F LLC. Business address 360 River Street, Springfield, Vermont. It's for the Wolcott store.
They're selling it in January. It's gonna be a new owner who lives in Springfield, but he has another store in East Hartford.
And his name is
I can't pronounce.
Faz, Faiz,
Ozzy Bear.
Hazmi, Hashmi.
I've only talked to him on the phone. According to the state, he is planning, so. And he's going to improve the store.
It never would.
He has a partner in New Jersey.
Yeah, I think it's his silent part.
He's completed, oh, it doesn't say. Did you get this in,
Through the application.
an email?
No, well, they said there was one on the site and I went in and downloaded it. And,
All right, one's for a liquor license, one's for a tobacco license.
sign it, but just prove it in the minutes and then I go on and approve it on the website. So he has the store and his heart, yeah. Yeah, I've been there. Yeah. And apparently it's one in Springfield. Didn't really tell a lot of details about that one, but I did get details about it. And
So it wouldn't come to us if they didn't meet all the qualifications?
that is correct.
All right, so they'll probably need it to make any money. I'll make a motion to accept the liquor and tobacco license presented for the new owners of the Wolcott store named Bazi Hazmi.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so carried. Hope everyone has a good holiday. You get some rest and you come back ready to go with this budget. He promised me he would be here next meeting.
I'd be there tonight. So motion to
Adjourn.
by
Sure.
I love it.
34. We haven't had a long, like, this in a long time, I know. Long.